know with the alphabet or aleph bet. So these are the letters that we have. Okay, and I'm going to use this because I know that's little and you might not be able to see it. Do you guys want one of these? You want to learn Hebrew, don't you? Everybody wants to learn Hebrew. I even have another one, so you can have your own. Your very own. Okay, so what we are looking at here is that column right there that is says modern Hebrew letter. Those are the ones that we're learning. Okay, from the beginning all the way down to noon, we have learned. So let's say them out loud. If you have it memorized or almost memorized, then don't look. If you don't have it memorized, it's all right. You can look. What matters most is not that you learn the letters in order. You know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's not what matters most. What matters most is when you look at a letter, you know what it is and what sound it makes. That's what's most important. Because then we're going to just be rearranging them into words, and you'll be able to know, well, the aleph is going to be that, and the beit is going to be that, and then you'll be able to read a word. Okay? And then we'll put more words together, and you'll be able to read more words, and by the end of the year, you'll be reading Hebrew. Yes? No. No. The end of the Torah year. The end of the Torah year. Yeah, but you could do it if you want. I think you could do that. Okay, so here we go. Out loud all together. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Het, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun. Okay? All right, the next three letters are that one right there that's almost like an O with a hook on the end of it. Okay? Actually, it'd be more of an oblong than a circle, but I'm not that good at that. Okay? The name of this letter is Samek. Okay? And it makes the letter S. It sounds like S. Okay? And it's, in a way, it's like near where the English S is in that second half of the alphabet after Mem. Okay? So that's the name of the letter. Originally, the letter was a picture of a thorn. Okay? And what does that mean? Well, it can mean something that you are going to protect. But there are other letters that mean that as well. So the meanings are right there, and you can read those. But that's the way that you make or write that letter. Okay? The next letter is the letter Ayin, which is easy to remember because originally it was an eye, like an eyeball. Okay? Ayin is the name of the letter, and in the modern Hebrew that we're learning, it looks like a Y that goes to the left. Okay? Ayin. The Ayin is a silent letter. Okay? And if there is a vowel under it or next to it, then it'll make the whatever that vowel makes, but that is a silent letter. There's one other letter that is a silent letter. Do you remember what it is? Aleph. Okay? Aleph and Ayin are the silent letters in the Hebrew alphabet. Don't ask me why. I don't know Why would you have a silent letter? I don't know. Okay? The last letter tonight that we'll learn is the letter P, and it looks like a C backwards with a little hook on it. Okay? And originally that letter was a mouth. Okay? And the sound that it makes is P, like the beginning of my name. Okay? So, we have all those letters now from the beginning. Here we go. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samek, Ayin, Pei. All right, you got it. Now you can put those papers down, and we'll do it without looking at the papers. Ready? Na, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey. If you can begin and break them up into like fives, that's the way I memorize. So I go Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey. And then I just walk around the house. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey. Do it over and over again. Then I take the next and then add them together. That's an easy way to memorize, but okay, that's enough of that. Now, let's look at the reading for this week. By the way, yes?
There's a little, what's the one that doesn't have a letter in between?
The one that doesn't have a letter in between is the one that doesn't exist anymore. That is no longer a letter in Hebrew, but it was a letter in ancient Hebrew. So, yep, the letter Gha. Gha.
What do we call them, wicked now then?
Wicked?
Apparently that was what was twist, dark, and wicked. So
Ah, yes.
what are we using now?
Because it's twisted. I don't know.
You didn't replace it with something?
No, they didn't.
So fascinating.
I know. It's interesting, isn't it? What?
It's because the world is such a better place now.
Because the world is a better place. Well, in some ways, maybe it is. In other ways, not as much. One of the things that I deal with is I know that the things online and things like being able to do this with Hello Zoomers and things like that is, I like being able to do that. I don't like that being the main way that we do life, because then we miss relationship, and relationship is what it's really all about. And if we're not able to be together and have relationship, then there's no way we're going to be able to follow the Word of God, because the Word of God is dropped on human beings in relationship to help us learn how to relate to God and how to relate to one another, right? We'll be looking at that a little bit more Friday night. I'm glad I'm back. But anyway, it's a long way down there, back east, going east. Man, oh man. Okay, what's the reading? This week we're in number 8, Vayishlach. All right, and I want to begin by looking at the end of last week's reading, which ended with verses 2 and 3 of that chapter. Says, Yaakov went on his way, and the angels of God met him. When Yaakov saw them, he said, "This is God's camp," and he called it Machanaim, which means two camps. Why would he do that? Why would he name it that? I mean, I get the idea, hi Dana, of naming it camp or God's camp, but Machanaim doesn't mean God's camp. It means two camps. And I wondered about that. That's one of the things in my reading when I'm reading it, and just something pops up and you're like, why? Why did you name it that? I don't have the answer. I thought maybe one of you did. Dana, do you know?
2 camps,
Yeah. Why?
one for ladies and one for men.
You know, in a way, you're right. Okay? Because later on, this is one of the things about reading Torah and digging into it is realizing that, you know, when we read it, we're right in the narrative. It's like we're there and we're watching and we're in real time reading about all this. But when this was written, it was written many years later, after all of this already happened. Sometimes the writers edit by adding things in there that happened a little bit later. Okay? I think this is an example. The reason is later when Jacob is at the river, if you remember, when Jacob is at the river, once again, there's this name, all right, Mahanaim, which means 2 camps, which he had. Because there was one where he was, and then there was one where his wives and children were. Okay? So this might be on the other side of the river. So you had the men on one side and the ladies and children on the other. So maybe you were right about that. See? You never know. You never know. Okay? The other thing that's interesting about this is the angels of God met him. Angels is the word malach. It's used down in the next verse where we read that Yaakov sent messengers ahead of him to Esau, his brother, to the land of Seir. The word messengers and the word angel is one word in Hebrew, malach. Okay? So think about it when you're translating another language. You know, wouldn't it be nice if it was like that word, these letters put together, malach, always means this, right? But that isn't the way it works. That word might mean angel, or it might mean messenger. It might mean a messenger of God, or it might mean a messenger of me. Okay? And in what we're going to read right now, you're going to notice, because I wrote it down there, that all the way up to now in Torah, malach means angel. Now it means a messenger. Okay? So that's interesting. Now, the other thing that I thought was really interesting with this name, Machanaim, all right, that Alter, in his version and notes of the Bible that I've been using, some of his notes, he recognizes that there's this binary division that runs through the whole story of Jacob. You have twin brothers struggling over a blessing that cannot really be cut in half. All right? Then you have 2 sisters, Leah and Rachel, struggling over the love of Jacob. Okay? Then you have flocks that are divided. Okay? One into spotted and speckled, and the other one into striped and whatever the other word is. Okay? And then you have this 2 camps that are going to be there. So, it's interesting when you just read these narratives to recognize there's a lot going on here in just the writing of it. Okay? It's not like somebody that's a news anchor sitting down just writing out, here's what happened, here's what happened, here's what happened. No, there's added literary devices that are in there. And sometimes it's neat to recognize those. Dana.
What is binary division?
Binary division means divided into 2.
Just divided into 2 and that's it?
Yep. No more than 2. It has the word bi at the beginning, like bicycle, which means what? 2 wheels. There's a guy that rides back in the BLM, because I ride my bike back in there sometimes on a unicycle, even in the winter.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Does he have a back tire on his
Yeah.
motorcycle?
Yes.
Gosh, that's pretty
Yeah. How much is that? I don't know. All right, now, here's what's going on. Jacob is going back into the land, because where was he? Well, he was up north with Uncle Laban. All right, and you remember about all that and everything that happened. So now, Jacob is rich now, okay? He had wealth as he was entering into Laban's, but he didn't bring it with him. Okay, now he's coming back and he's got a lot more wealth, because now he has flocks and herds and wives and children and everything else. All right, so I imagine that means he has like people that work for him, which in the Bible would use the word slaves, but it didn't really mean that. Okay, it meant more like employees. So he had guys that worked for him. So he has all of these people, and he's heading back, but he knows on his way back there's something that happened years ago that was left unfinished. All right? And what was it? It was that his brother was going to murder him, because his brother was angry, because in his brother's mind, Jacob stole the blessing and the inheritance. But did he really? He did not. That was God's doing, wasn't it? I mean, didn't God give that word to Rachel when Jacob was and Esau were going to be born, that the younger was going to be the boss and the elder was going to be under the younger? Yes. So all that happened, and now he's on his way back. So naturally, he's going to be worried that his brother is going to be mad at him and not have let it go. And somebody asked me today, they said, isn't that weird that somebody would hold on to something for that long and not let it go? And I was like, no, that's normal. That is not God's normal, but that is normal. People hold on to things for the rest of their lives. I mean, I had my granddad and my uncle, okay? It's my dad's brother. And my granddad and my uncle went, I don't know how many years, wouldn't speak to one another. They would not speak. The uncle was angry and bitter and yada, yada, yada. And he didn't want anything to do with his dad anymore. So they didn't speak to each other till they were both in the hospital. And the uncle was dying. And the granddad, my granddad, was, I don't remember why he was in there, but anyway, that actually got resolved. But right at the door of death, it got resolved in a hospital. So isn't that crazy? My uncle's boy, Blake, was talking to me about it. He said, yeah, I went in there and I looked at my dad and I said, Dad, your father is right down the hall and you're going to die. Is this the way that you want to leave it? So he said, you're right. So wheeled him down there, made up, whatever that looked like. But so it happens. It's normal, which is something that I notice about reading the Bible and reading Torah, is that God doesn't, and the writers and the editors don't mask the reality of everybody's ick, right? I mean, all in the rest of the readings, you guys are reading in Samuel, and you're reading all this stuff about David and Saul and all of them. And how many of you had this idea of David, that David was like, I mean, he could almost do no wrong, right? Wrong, okay? Today, either today or yesterday in the reading, we read that David and his wife, who was Saul's daughter, Michal, David was going to run away from Saul. So David's wife, Michal, brought out the household idol. And I never got that. I mean, I've read it, but I never got that. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. David and his wife Michal had a household idol? Yep. Dressed it up like David, stuck it in the bed, and David ran off. When Saul arrived, she was like, well, David's in his bed, and he's in there sleeping, but it was the household idol. Now, most of the idols from that era that I have looked at are little itty-bitty things that you, like, put up on your mantle, okay, that guard the house. This one was big enough that it was like as big as David. So here you have David, the man after God's own heart, and he has an idol right in his front door, maybe. You know, welcoming everyone. Why? Because idolatry was everywhere. It was rampant. It was normal in Israel. Okay? Which is why over and over again you read about God's word saying, get rid of your idols. Get rid of your idols. If you look that word up, I bet that word is used hundreds of times in the Tanakh, idol. Because that's what they did, okay? Even when Jacob gets ready to go back on this trip where he's going, what does he do? What does he say? He says, all right, we're going to go back to the Holy Land, to my land where my dad lives. All right, we're going to go back there. Get rid of your idols. Why did you have them? Right? Then Rachel makes off with her dad's idols, brings them with her. She can't be without them. These are the heroes of the Bible. So, that on the one hand, that gives me comfort, because I know I don't have to be perfect, right? On the other hand, it makes me go, wow, you know, we're like that now. Today.
So what would the
aren't we?
equivalent be? Would that be like her sneaking her iPhone type thing, or you could make it an idol?
I guess you could make it an idol.
Changed much, right? So today it would just be something else, but we could do the same, right?
Yeah, something that you felt like you couldn't live without. You know, so yeah, it could be that. Especially the younger you are, the more it's likely to be that. The older you are, the more it's not likely to be that. If that thing got run over and we didn't have them, I would be all right. I'd be all right. We could go back to the way it was, you remember?
How would we drive?
How would we drive? How would we get where we're going, you mean? That's right. Can you imagine if it all shuts down, everybody's going to be lost. I don't know. East? What do you mean east? What does that mean? Yeah. When I was down there at my mom's, Maryville is, see, I said that right, Maryville, otherwise known as Maryville. Maryville is not built like this, like a grid. Maryville is like windy roads that wind over here and go over and then wind back that way. And it's really hard figuring that place out. So I had that out every day. Go to Home Depot. Where's Home Depot? Shh, you know. But, all right, let's move on. Now, when Esau meets, when Jacob is going to meet him, he gives these instructions to his messengers. These would be the guys that work for him that he's going to send ahead to Esau. And what is he going to do? He's going to give him wave after wave of presents and gifts. Why? Yeah, to appease his brother. Now, remember, what Jacob is if nothing else, Jacob is a shrewd businessman, okay? So you can just imagine, he's like, all right, what am I going to have to do to get out of this one? Well, I guess money will buy me something. Maybe my brother will not kill me if he realizes I'm rich enough that I can help him. So he begins sending all these waves and waves and waves of gifts, all right? And it's very interesting in verse 21, he says at the end of that, he says, maybe he will be friendly toward me. That's in the complete Jewish Bible translation. The literal word is nasa, which a lot of you remember means lift off, or it means forgive. Because that's what you do when you forgive. You lift off a burden. So he's basically saying, maybe my brother will forgive me. All right? And that will have him be friendly. And maybe Jacob is hoping he can buy his brother's forgiveness. Okay? So, as they go down, he takes his wives and his slave girls and his 11 children, and he goes down to the river Jabbok. Okay? Jabbok. But let's look at the second page of notes. Okay? Right in the middle there, you'll notice that in the midst of this anxiety over his brother and worry and fear, Jacob remembers Yehovah. He says, please rescue me from my brother Esau. I'm afraid of him. I'm afraid he'll come and attack me without regard to the mothers or the children. You said, I will certainly do you good and make your descendants as numerous as the grains of sand by the sea, which are so many they can't be counted. Now, do you notice that Jacob is treating God like he looks like he treats everybody else, like this is a business arrangement? Okay, you made a deal with me. You made a promise to me, and now I'm going to hold you to that promise. Do you think that's a good way to relate to God?
Well, I think that if you don't go at him like that,
Right.
you're respectful at first,
Uh-huh.
you're humble, and then you just remind him.
Right. God doesn't want robots, right?
It sounds like he's decreeing the promise.
Yes, it does. It sounds exactly like that. It sounds like he's saying, like Abraham did. Well, Abraham's his grandfather, right? Okay? So like his grandfather Abraham did, when Abraham looked at God and he was like, whoa, wait a minute. You can't go down there and kill all of those people. What if there's righteous people down there? And then he does this whole number deal where he deals down in numbers. God, what if there are 50? What if there are 40? And he goes all the way down to 10. Will you destroy it then? And God's like, no, I won't. What's amazing is that when Abraham did that, God didn't destroy Abraham. They had a real relationship. Yes, he had. And sometimes in our religion, in our religious mind, we think that God doesn't know our emotions, or that we're not allowed to have them. Okay? And I don't think that's right at all. I think not only are we allowed to have them, but God gave them to us, so they must be there for a reason. And if you are, for example, if you're angry, tell him. He can handle it. Okay, now, you may need to deal with it later, okay, because it might be a bitterness, and then you may need to do a forgive me for being angry, all right, but in the midst of it, what are you going to do? Are you going to let him know where you are and what's in your heart, or are you going to just let him be the religious being in a box up there that you have to have, these rules? You get where I'm going for here? Jacob is a real man, okay? He has a real personality. He has flaws and he has things about him that are great, all right? All of them are in there, and all of that makes up his relationship with God. If, for example, you read the Psalms, they're filled with emotions. Sometimes the writers are like, God, you are awesome, you are great, you are wonderful, you are mighty. Okay, I will never worry or be afraid of man. And then later, you'll read and it's like, God, I am afraid for my life. You know what I mean? What's up? You're up and down, just like you. Okay? So, it's all right, is what I'm getting at. Okay? Now, let's look at the next page of notes. There's a map of where he went on the way down and where the river Jabbok is, which is like right in the middle between the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea. It goes right into the Jordan River, flows right into the Jordan River. Okay? Now, what's amazing about this river is not a stream. It's a river, and it's known for having very steep banks. So when you're going to cross a river like that with children, okay, and women and animals and all that, it's a major deal. Okay, it's not like, okay, sorry, just got a message. I'm looking at my messages lately a lot. Anyway, he gets up that night with his wives and his slave girls and his 11 children and forded, which means crossed the Jabbok. He took them, sent them across, and then sent his possessions across, and then Jacob is left alone. And now you have one of the strangest stories in the Bible. Because if you read it literally, it's not going to work. It says, a man wrestled with him until daybreak. Boy, there's a lot of questions there. Like, what man? Who was this man? Why daybreak? Why is it at night when he has this wrestling match with this man? Okay, now there's a lot going on here, all right? So I have words of some of the people that I read on this. One is Skip Moen. Skip has the Hebrew text of left alone. So he was left alone all night. Is Yater Labado. It is not just by himself. It is psychological isolation. Jacob has come to terms with what he has become. All the manipulation, scheming, lying that creates his name. And now he is at the end. He can't go forward into the promised land of Yehovah, because in that land, Yehovah is the ruler. He has to submit. But before he can submit, he has to turn away from the man he has constructed. Okay?
I agree. Because when you're alone,
Yes.
and especially the situation that he had to separate his family, he's coming to his brother and he thinks he's going to die. He's alone now. He's with his own thoughts.
Right.
And he's
Yes.
living his life.
Yes.
He's done what he didn't
So there's wrestling with that. And it can easily be Yes. Yes. When am I going to die? Is this going to be the end of it all? All of that comes together. There are these moments in life where everything just sort of at once, and you're like, ah. Okay? That's where Jacob is. He's in a reality where he's going to either grow or he's done. Okay? So, now, when you read it, it's that a man wrestled with him. It's the Hebrew word that means man. I think it's ish, okay, which just means a man, all right? And the question is, who is this man? Was it a man? Was it an enemy? Was it God? Was it Yehovah? Was it Yeshua? Was it an angel? Was it Jacob himself? Was he wrestling with himself? Is it symbolic of that wrestling that goes on in all of us? Now, this might bother you, but it's good to know that the way that Jewish rabbis and Jews look at the Bible is not linear and everything based on objective facts. Okay? There's a lot of room. And in that room, there's a lot of ideas that work together and that they can argue and debate about. All right? This is one of them. This is one example of that. There are Jewish sages that have written and believe that this man was the ministering angel of Esau. Okay? And that this angel had to bless Jacob and admit that the blessings Jacob received from Isaac are rightfully his and not Esau's. That's one line of thinking. Okay? There are other Jewish commentaries that point out that the fight described here is the opening act of a battle that continues to this day between the Jewish people who are represented by Jacob and the enemy nations that seek its destruction. Okay? There are others, such as in the Zohar, which is a Jewish work. It's kind of a mystical work. Describe Jacob's battle with the angel as symbolic of man's struggle with his dark side, which is what Skip Moen's words were kind of like. Okay, but then something else that Moen wrote was, we are to identify that we are Jacob. We are the ones fighting with a man who comes out of nowhere and pummels us until we collapse. We are trying to cross into God's land, and we ourselves are the enemy that attempts to prevent the crossing. But we cannot win by defeating the man. We can only resolve this battle, resolve this battle, not win it, by engaging the man till we emerge complete. Okay, big words. What does that mean? You don't win a battle with God. Okay? You can battle with him, you can struggle with him, you can come out of it better than you were, but it isn't like, I won, God, you lose. No, it doesn't work that way. Now, something to make this even more confusing is that Hosea writes about this event, and his words are about Jacob and what happened. So he says, in the womb, he took his brother by the heel. In the strength of his manhood, he fought with who? God. Yes, he fought with an angel. Wait a minute. Which is it, God or an angel? Right? Okay, he fought with an angel and won. And he wept and he pleaded with him. And then at Bethel he found him, and there he would later speak with us. Okay? So Hosea says that Jacob fought with God and with an angel and won. Very interesting, the word that is used here that means fought is the word Sarah, which is her name, the name of his grandma. Okay? Sarah's name means fight, battle. Wow. And then you look back and you realize that it looks like at the end of their days, her and Abraham were not living together. Why? They were having a battle. Okay? Does this blow all of your thoughts of who these people were and what this was like for all of them? Okay? And something else that's a bottom line is, how is it all right that you can have more than one idea in interpreting about what a Bible verse means, and it's perfectly fine? How is that all right? It's only all right from a Hebrew perspective. It is not right from a Greek perspective. From a Greek mind and a Greek perspective, there's only one right way. The Hebrew mind doesn't think that way. Okay, so if you want to get into it and get into the Bible, you got to look at it that way, that it has play in it. All right? Okay, reading on, we find this, that when he saw that he did not, this being, this man angel God that's fighting with Jacob, when he found out he did not defeat him, in other words, he didn't win either. It's a draw. Okay, he struck Jacob's hip socket so that his hip was dislocated while he wrestled with him. And the being said, "Let me go, because it's daybreak." Why? You know, that to me sounds like some horror movie. The vampire. The sun's going to come out. You can't see me. Maybe it has to do with that. No one sees God face to face and lives. You say, well, yeah, but Jacob wrote that he saw God face to face and lived. Okay, that was Jacob's perspective. That doesn't mean that's what happened. Okay? So then Jacob says, I'm not going to let you go unless you bless me. So Jacob recognizes that whoever this is that he's wrestling with or fighting with, whoever it is, he needs something that individual has. He needs blessing. So he says, I'm not going to let go till you bless me. And then the man asked, what is your name? He said, Jacob. And then the man said, from now on, you will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have shown your strength to both God and men and have prevailed. That doesn't mean win. That means you're alive and you're carrying on. You didn't lose. Okay? And you are more complete, and he was. And what is it in him that you could look at and know that Jacob was a grown-up, complete man? The limp. He limped. Okay? See, to us, that's the opposite. You know, we want to have it all together. We want to have it all under our control without realizing that life is not like that. You're not going to have everything under your control. Sometimes it's going to get ugly. It's going to be a mess. Okay? You got to give it up. Right? And give it to him. Do the best you can do and then let go of it. Don't worry about it. All right? Anyway, some things that were written about this changing of the name. Okay, we'll begin with Bennett. You guys know who he is. Todd Bennett. He says this change of name is quite significant. Jacob had to get cleaned up and go back to where his journey began, Bethel, the house of Elohim. He had fled the land promised to his fathers and lived in exile, a veritable slave to his father-in-law. He returned a different man. There it is. A man with direction and purpose, a man in covenant with Yehovah. This new man was to be named Yisrael, signifying that he was not the same person as the last time that he was there. And I would argue it's that way with all of us wherever we are. Okay? When I go back, and I go back to my mom's house, I am not the man that was there 5 years ago. Okay? When I go back and I look at the house that I grew up in, okay, and everything's different. The neighborhood's different. It's different, but it isn't. It's like I recognize it. That's my house, but boy, it didn't look like that. And that tree wasn't there. And, you know, all this. But I'm different. I'm just as different as my neighborhood. Okay? It's fascinating. Now, the word Israel can mean one who struggles with God. Dennis Prager wrote in his comments about this, by giving his chosen people the name struggle with God, okay, God was not only giving people permission to struggle with him. He was actually asking us to. Doing so makes our faith authentic, and it is that authenticity which keeps us from turning into religious automatons. Yeah, it is on the one hand. On the other hand, I like everything neat and yeah, it's kind of messy. Some of us don't like mess. Jeff Benner wrote in Hebrew that this Israel is a verb and not a noun. Okay? And can literally be translated as he turns the head of God. As in, Jacob turned God's head. And Benner writes, the way I like to understand this is that when Israel, either Jacob or his descendants, speaks to God, God, the father of Israel, stops what he's doing and turns to his son and says, what do you want, my son? Okay, and then in the complete Jewish study Bible notes, it says the name Jacob in Hebrew means, may God be your defending rear guard. That's the name Jacob. Okay, to Jacob, his given name, God now adds a name of further blessing, Israel, indicating someone who's successfully struggled with God. Both names are used interchangeably hereafter. So you'll notice that. Sometimes when God changes a name, like Abram, he changed his name to Abraham, okay? And that's it. From then on, in the Bible, it's Abraham. Okay? It isn't that way with Jacob. With Jacob, he renames him Israel, but then all throughout the Tanakh, it's Jacob, Israel, Jacob, Israel, Jacob, Israel. It's very interesting. Sons of Jacob, sons of Israel. So I don't think it's an error.
Do you think it's kind of like when parents call their children by their first and middle name? When he's misbehaving.
Patrick Byron Hadley. No, I looked at that. I looked at that idea that maybe when they use the name Jacob, it's when something is bad or negative, and they use Israel when it's good. Nope. I don't know the rhyme or reason. I haven't found a rhyme or reason as to why it's used that way, unless it's the realization that even in this new identity that he's getting, the old guy's not gone. Okay, you're there, but you're new, but you're there. So, yes, Dana.
Two things. One, it sounds really familiar to this binary thing you've been talking about. The other thing is
Yes.
really familiar to the idea that Jacob is still two people, and he still has two ways of going about and doing God's commands.
Okay.
What I'm saying by that is that he's got an Israel way of going about and doing it, but he's also got a Jacob way.
Well, that's, yes, but the Israel way isn't always the right way, the good way.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay. In a way, it's like looking at us and not, really, we don't want to be like divided, like I'm different people or whatever, but we want to realize we have an evil inclination and we have a good inclination. There it is. Okay, there's the binary. The binary is, what are you going to do? Okay, are you going to go that way or are you going to go that way? Just like the old Bugs Bunny with the guy here and the guy here, or the, Yes.
I tend to agree also with Dana, because the Hebrews gave names with meanings.
Yes, the Hebrews gave names with meanings.
And so Jacob, I don't remember what Jacob meant.
Well, if Benner is right, Jacob means, may God be defending your rear guard, God of my rear guard, the God who watches over me, the God who follows me and watches over me so that I don't go the wrong direction.
So Jacob could technically go in and out of Jacob.
Sure.
And he is right.
And Israel.
Remembering who God is
Yeah.
in Jacob, and then he's walking in the steps of Israel.
Yes. And, yes, go ahead, Patty.
Finish that.
It's lost. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a couple questions. Previously in the scriptures, when a name was changed, who changed it?
Well, God.
Was he the only one?
You mean leading up to this?
Yes, up until this period of time with Jacob.
Well, there's going to be an example of another one, in a way, when Jacob changes the name of Benjamin.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's the only one I know of. I don't know of any. No, it's God.
God.
Yeah.
Okay. In this passage that we're reading, do you know the Hebrew word that is used for God?
I think it's alternately Elohim, and if you're reading it in the complete Jewish Bible and it has God, it's Elohim. God is always Elohim in the complete Jewish Bible. Yehovah is always Adonai in the complete Jewish Bible. So keep going.
Okay, well, I have two Bible studies going through my head here. This one and one other, and we're kind of in the same portion of study. And it came out that that it was Yeshua was probably the one that changed his name there, because Jacob had wrestled and come to Jesus moment. So that's why I was asking.
And who else do we know in the Bible that is a man that is God? You know, Yeshua is God in the flesh. So that could easily mean that this literally was Yeshua that was there wrestling with him, just like it will be Yeshua who is the commander of the armies of Israel in the book of Joshua. Okay, because it says there's a guy and he's got a flaming sword. Well, who else in the Bible has a flaming sword? Yeshua in the book of Revelation. Okay, so he's all over the Torah and the Tanakh. Yes?
One of the things I was thinking about is the Hosea passage. It says that he fought with God, but he also fought with an angel and won. And I guess I can look at some point, curious if that word for angel is that word for messenger, and if it would kind of going along with that lines, if it was like wrestling with Yeshua, and there was a message to be.
Totally. Isn't Yeshua a messenger of Yehovah?
Yeah, so that's
Yes.
what the idea is.
Yes,
Intertwined.
yes. So here's something else, and I just now popped into my head with the whole name conversation. So we have Abraham changes his name. I mean, God changes his name. Okay? When he changes his name, from then on, he's Abraham. But Abraham is both Avram and Avraham. Avraham doesn't delete Avram. Avram means what? Exalted father. Avraham means exalted father of many. Okay? So one doesn't delete the other. It brings another depth. Okay, so maybe that's what's going on with Jacob. One doesn't delete the other. Israel, that your name is Israel, doesn't delete you as Jacob, but it's a new name to give you a new depth and a new meaning of where you're going. So like in the book of Revelation, where you read that we get new names, okay, the believers. It's like that used to bother me, because it'd be like, I like my name. There's nothing wrong with my name. Why would you give me a new name? In the Greek mind, it's either one or the other. In the Hebrew mind, you can be both. You can have your old name, if you will, and your new name is a new revelation of your identity, maybe. or your mission or whatever.
Your level up.
You hit your level up. Do you get video games? Do you do video games?
I have children.
Oh, you have children that do video games.
Okay, another simple.
Yes.
Abraham,
Uh-huh.
J.M.,
Abraham. Abraham.
father of many, instead of just the father.
Right.
Pharaoh is the father of many. Israel is now the of many.
Right.
Israel is many.
Yes.
Okay?
Right.
And was it something you said, or maybe it was from this other thing I'm doing, that I lost my train of thought.
I did that a minute ago. It'll come back to you. When it does,
I think you started to say something.
grab me.
My question is, I still look back when Jacob was Jacob, before he was Israel. And I still look back at what he did with the sheep when he was dealing with Laban.
Uh-huh.
And-
Right.
And what God, and anyhow, my comment is when God tells me to do stuff like that, I know that I didn't dream it up.
Ah,
I know that it wasn't Dana's idea to go do something.
yeah.
Oh, by the way, Dana, ching! Oh yeah, I got the message. That's, and I experienced that in my life.
Yay.
Jacob experienced that with the sheep. And God says, well, do this, go do this. When because Laban was basically trying to take all
Right.
his stuff. And he figured out, well, here's a way that I can do it where I can keep more stuff. That's
Yes.
my comment.
Cool.
I have a hard time with Jacob's story because I feel like time and again, God's telling him to be dishonest.
Okay, well,
To be a dirtbag.
well, listen. The way that most of us, how long have you been in Christianity?
Do you really want to know?
Yeah.
No, I won't tell you. I was 11 when I got saved.
Okay, you were 11. So you've been involved in Christianity for more than 5 years.
Yes.
Okay, you've been involved in it, okay? Those of us that have learned these stories from the Christian perspective have learned things a little wrong, okay? Jacob is not a bad guy. Jacob was not a bad guy who wrestled with God and then was made a good guy.
But if I did what he did, I know the spirit of religion would be telling me I'm sinning, I'm greedy, I'm whatever. And if my mother was saying, I'm going to help you deceive your father, I would be like, oh, no, that's on you. Yeah, I mean,
Well, he did.
I know.
Those were his words.
I know.
He was like, well, Mom, what if he finds out? And she goes, it's on me, not you. And he was like, all right, you're my mom.
It's so strange, and God said it would happen anyway, right? So it's like I know if God told me, put the sticks in, to make the sheep look that way, I would be like, that's Satan.
Yeah, well, it's a mess even learning whose voice is whose. It's a mess. It'd be nice if it were just
Except for the peace, right?
easy.
Except for the peace.
It helps. Peace helps. But sometimes God sends us into situations where we're scared to death to be in that situation. But that's what we know what we have to do.
So
Right?
There's one more thing that's happening in our discussion, and you've said it earlier, and that's the idea of Greek versus Hebrew.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can choose the Greek direction, and
Sure.
it benefits you, and sometimes you can choose the Hebrew direction, and it benefits you also.
And that whole idea is Hebrew.
Yes.
That sometimes you could do one and sometimes you could do that? Yeah, of course. Where does Greek benefit you? It benefits you in life. It benefits you in finances. It benefits you in fixing your automobile. It benefits you in flying an airplane. It I don't want my pilot to go, well, there's a couple ways we could go. I want him to go, no, I know right where we're going. Although, in reality, there are a couple ways you can go. I know that because you're flying along and you hit the bumps. And if you know what goes on when you hit those bumps, the pilot is not worried at all about the bumps. He's worried about you being worried about the bumps, he or she. And so what they do is they go up, because hopefully, there's a little road in the air. Hopefully they can get above that road and find another road where there's not all those bumps. So they do that, and then they come back down again. Sometimes there's clouds and storms that go around them. It's fascinating. Okay? All right, so now you have all of this, and then you have the last statement here that Jacob named it Peniel, face of God. And his words were, because I have seen God face to face, and yet my life is spared. And as the sun rose on him, he went on past Peniel, limping at the hip. And this is why, to this day, stop right there. What day? Who's writing this? You know what I mean? It's like, to this day, the people of Israel do not eat the thigh muscle that passes along the hip socket, because the man struck Jacob's hip at his socket. Okay? So, in other words, once again, it's being revealed that there's an editor that's editing this. Okay? To this day means the day of whoever wrote this down and stuck it in here. To that day, this is why they don't eat the hip muscle. Now, later on, you can read all those notes there. I'll go to the next page, because I wanted to read you what Dennis Prager wrote in his comments about this. It's fascinating. Okay? To this day, kosher butchers remove the sciatic nerve from the meat. Okay? And the practice is an example of the centrality of physical signs and rituals in the Torah and in Jewish tradition. The Torah's laws, ritual and moral, have three primary purposes. Number one, to produce a moral individual. Number two, to bring holiness into one's life. And number three, to preserve Jewish memory. Okay, now, Dennis is a Jew, so of course he writes to preserve Jewish memory. I would just say to preserve memory, the memory of who you are. Okay? As a general rule, the Torah believes that people can best internalize a value or a memory through physical representation. The Torah and Judaism are behaviorists in their approach to life. How we behave is ultimately more important than how we think or feel. Okay? So, every year, we have a meal where we meet together and celebrate Passover. Why do we do that? Why do we do all that? To preserve the memory. Okay? To remember. Same thing with what's going on with this thing about the hip muscle. Okay? Being out of socket or whatever. And so Israel doesn't eat the hip. It remembers. You remember Jacob. Whenever you eat meat, as a Jew, if you're an observant Jew, when you eat meat, you remember Jacob. Fascinating.
I must have missed that.
Okay, so now what happens is when they meet, Esau runs to meet him, and he hugs him and throws his arm around his neck and kisses him, and they wept. So they had a reunion, and it was a good reunion. Interestingly, Jewish writers on this, the vast majority of them believe that Esau was faking it. He got the gifts, he liked the gifts, and then they're just going to be cordial as adults, but that Esau never really, it wasn't like he forgave his brother and lifted the burden off of him. Now, why would they look at it that way? Why would they think of it that way? Because everybody out of the line of Esau, which is known as Edom, were enemies of Israel. Okay, and still are to this day. All right? Okay, moving on. Let me see what else I want to bring out tonight. Let's look at the story of, the end of 33, verse 18, the end of this section. Having traveled from Padan Aram, Yaakov arrived safely in the city of Shechem in Canaan and set up camp near the city. That word arrived safely is the word shalem, which is from the root word shalom. So he arrived complete there. After the whole experience with his brother, after all of that was dealt with, after the wrestling with God, there was a sense of completeness in Jacob. Okay? All right, now let's think about this thing with Dinah. Dinah getting raped by, what's his name? Shechem. Okay? And now we have another background of another ancient people group. And Dinah is out there, and there's argument over whether Dinah, and this may be one of those male-oriented arguments, there's argument over whether Dinah was like asking for it. Sometimes you've heard that. I think that's a bad way of looking at it, the whole idea of rape. Okay, so this woman was abused. Dinah was abused. That's what the word means. All right? So to think that Dinah was asking for it, I mean, was she? I don't know. I wasn't there. Has that happened? Probably. Okay? But whatever, the bottom line of this is that this, by the way, they were young, probably teenagers when this happened. And the guy, whose name is Shechem, all right, wanted her, and he humiliated her. He raped her and humiliating her, which literally means made her suffer. Okay? So Dinah's brothers hatched a plan to get back at Shechem. And it wasn't just to get back at Shechem. It was to get back at Shechem and all the people of Shechem. Okay, it's to get back at that whole group there. And the people of Shechem, they had the idea that if we intermarry with Israel, we can grow our influence. Okay, and we'll serve this God who blesses Israel and all that. So yeah, it's win-win, right? Let's get in there and let's see what we can do, and let's intermarry. Now, Dinah's brothers, and by the way, Dinah's full brothers, okay? Because Dinah was the daughter of one of the wives of Jacob, and there were 4 wives. So Dinah's brothers from the same mother were who? They were Levi, and who was the other one? Simeon. Okay? So they're the ones most likely that had this bright idea of, okay, let's let them know that they can join with us, and we'll join with their, we'll allow our daughters to marry their sons if they all get circumcised, because that means they're agreeing to the covenant. So that they agree. Can you imagine a whole bunch of men going, yeah, all right, we'll all do that. So they all do that. And while they're all in agony from the circumcision, Simeon and Levi say, you're all dead. And they go in and they wipe them all out. Jacob doesn't like that. Jacob's like, you're going to make me a stench in everybody's nostrils all around here. And then it ends abruptly. End of the chapter. Those are the last words in the chapter, is Jacob going, you're going to make me a stench in the eyes of everyone. Okay? Now, the last thing in the reading that we read that was very interesting to me is the genealogy of Esau. Okay? So you have a genealogy, and in the middle of the genealogy, you have a name that nobody knows about, and nobody knows what it means unless you speak Hebrew, which I didn't know what it meant. That's the name Hadad, or Hadad, probably how it's pronounced in verse 35. When Husham died, Hadad, the son of Badad, who killed Midian in the field of Moab, reigned in his place, and the name of his city was Avit. Hadad was the name of an ancient god, the Aramean storm god, whom the Canaanites called Baal or Baal. The false god Hadad was believed to be able to bring rain to the observant. So this guy either was named after the god, or the god was named after the guy. One or the other, they had the same name. So, can you imagine having a baby and naming it Baal? Okay, kind of what was going on there. But remember, these were not followers of Yehovah. Okay, Edom were not followers of Yehovah. So, thus ends the lesson. Took more than an hour.
I have a friend who's a teacher. One of the students in her class, his name was
Lucifer has a name. Did your mama love you? You know? Wow. Yeah, there's all sorts of things going on today.
Just wanted to know if this was the same Dinah that was playing the banjo in the kitchen.
Yes. Someone's in there with her. Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. Someone's in the kitchen, I know. Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah, strumming on the old banjo and singing fee-fi fiddly-I-O, fee-fi fiddly-I-O, fee-fi fiddly-I-O, strumming on the old banjo. Bing. Do you know what that's about? It has something to do with a train and an engineer, and the name of the train is Dinah. And they're putting the coal in the engine. So that's what that one's about.
I remember now what I was going to say. I'm interested. I think it's interesting, the similarities of Abraham and Jacob. And didn't you tell us that several weeks ago that Jacob means one who studies more, and that he studied with his grandfather, Abraham, in the tent. They went in a tent and studied.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Except that's not, I don't think that was because of his name. I think that's just the tradition that Jacob was the word is, we read it as he was a quiet man.
right.
But that can mean exactly what you're bringing up, yeah.
But it's true, we do learn, and then we carry on those traits from
Yes.
whatever we learn.
Right, yeah. Okay, well, get out there and get home
Brush off some snow.
before it, comes down in calamity.
I'm trying to remember when Jacob deceived Esau. Didn't didn't Esau say something about Jacob's name?
Oh, yeah. Because to Esau, his name, see, because you have those levels of meaning in Hebrew. Apparently they named him because he grabbed his brother's heel coming out of the womb. Okay, so one meaning of it can be heel grabber. But that isn't negative. It can be either way, okay? Esau took it as negative and said, basically, I'm gonna see that you're named deceiver because you have deceived me. Okay, well, wait a minute. When Esau came in and he looked at the stew and he was like, give me some of that or I'm going to die. And Jacob goes, well, give me your birthright. And he goes, all right. Was that a deception? No, it was a good deal. Jacob made a really good deal right there.
Opportunistic.
He could have.
Okay, what's another word for opportunistic? That's a negative word.
Lucky.
He didn't value
No. What?
his birthright.
No, he didn't value his birthright at all. His brother was a jerk.
Yeah, and it could have been like a joke, you know.
Could have been.
You know, it could have been. I mean,
Maybe Esau thought of it that way, but then at the end, Jacob was like, ha, done deal. See?
yeah.
Maybe.
You know, I was thinking about Dinah, and there were different things to consider. Why would Shechem do that to her? But the Bible says that she went out to mingle with,
Hang out with the girls. That's right.
and if the girls were loose, maybe he thought she was one of those.
Well, that's only in our day where that happens, isn't it? No.
But
It could have been because they're going to give up their lives and get cut just to get to be married to other
Yeah.
Jacob's
Yeah.
the women.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole town.
Israelite women. Pretty amazing, huh?
Yeah, that's true.
The Israelite women must have been knocked out gorgeous.
Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
They were like three.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you all good night. Good night, Zoom audience. We'll talk to you later. Bless all of you.